Hello, this is Mark from I Am Organic Gardening, and 2 years ago I started a process of comparing back to Eden wood chips to fall leaves. Those 2 years have gone by very quickly, and last year I had a problem with the crop that I made plenty of videos on, but this year I want to go back into the raised beds that I have in the back to Eden with the wood chips. And I want to see how my perennial roots are doing and growing in the bed, which I successfully grew butternut squash into and also spaghetti squash. But I want to see after 2 years how those wood chips decayed and if the roots from the perennial crops are actually reaching into the wood chips already after 2 years. But first I want to share with you, I have this whole field filled with leaves once again. It's over 50 feet wide and over 300 feet long. The reason I do that because I'm able to get a lot of leaves from my township out of a park system, so they're clean. And the other reason I do that is, one, it's free material being delivered to me, but also the township pays me to do this. Meaning they pay me a fee to deliver them and then dump them here on my property, because it takes about a little less than a year to break them down and they don't have the room for it. And so far what you see here is I made over about $1,500 so far with all these leaves for the fee for them dumping them here on the ground. Will it compress the soil a little bit? Yes, but I will regrow that soil. I've been doing it now for almost 7 years. I know a great technique how to do it, and I understand how to decompose the leaves very quickly to make leaf mold, but it's still a natural process, so I'm not worried about it. But this is a good income, like I said, is what you're seeing here is over $1,500 worth of fees that I've charged the township to bring the leaves out here to recycle them. So here's a good example of one of the raised beds that I did differently than the original back to Eden gardens that most people do. I pushed aside the wood chips that after I put them about at least over a foot thick, I pushed the wood chips aside here and there, and I filled up this area with sand, silt, and clay, my original topsoil, with organic matter, and I mixed it all up because I'm moving it around a lot and I want to build my soil. So now I raised that bed up to about 8 inches, and then I filled the wood chips to the same level as the bed. So the bed is originally 8 inches taller than the original soil underneath it, and I have the wood chips level and then in both pathways. So what I want to see now, because it is a borderless bed, I don't have wood here on the sides of my raised bed, I want to see if the roots from all these here, all this clover and possibly the comfrey plant here too, has actually extended into the wood chips after 2 years, and see what the wood chips look like and how much they decomposed. So here we have the edge of the bed, and let's see what we can find here. You can see that the wood chips are broken down very nicely within 2 years already. Wow. Right next to this perennial edge here. What this is nice about doing, you can see a white root here that I just broke off and some of the raised bed, but this is all wood chips. But now how still nice and moist they are. We've had a rainy season this year. But what I'm not seeing here too much yet is here we have our, where's our end of our dirt here? Here it is. In here, we're only down about, say, 6 inches so far. And I can see just a couple of roots starting to come out here, but not a lot that I expected. So even after 2 years, it hasn't really broken down too much yet of our original soil level here for the roots to come in here so far. So it's going to take a little bit longer than we thought, but it also is nice enough to continue to hopefully make mycorrhizal fungi to come in here to start breaking down the wood chips. But you can see that then we have this other fungi here, which is called saprotrophic fungi, and that's the white fungi you see on the wood chips most likely. That is not mycorrhizal fungi. So I have this area now that I can plant anything into, like I mentioned, and now I'll just wait for the wood chips to break down over time in the future. If you want your wood chips to break down quicker, there is something you can possibly plant in the ground in the wood chips after 2 years. It's called oil seed radishes, and I'll go get one. So I moved over to a different part of my farm in a different field. Now what you can see here, this is called an oilseed radish or Daikon radish. The shovel is a total of 1 foot tall there that I have next to it. You can see that it's a little bit much taller than that. And also the white radish part, these are edible and they only grow in the fall. You can only sow them in the fall to make them grow. If you plant them in springtime, they'll just bolt and go to seed. Now, what I do is I actually remove this plant, and I'll use this for harvest for tonight, is I cut this up into little discs and I put them in my stir fry. Now, what's nice about this is that this root here, or radish, that is quite long, has a nice long taproot, and we're going to try an experiment, and I'm pretty sure it's going to work. I'm going to plant some seeds into those wood chips. Now we'll go back in a little bit to look at those wood chips and how they're decomposed and how they are completely decomposed already, so then I can plant these oilseed radishes directly in the wood chips, not in the soil. I think there's enough moisture in those wood chips that this radish will grow in there. Now what's nice about this also too is that this radish, when it dies, if you leave it outside, it takes about 3 times of a good heavy frost to kill it off completely. Now when this dies, it leaves all those green leaves on top, and it falls on top of the wood chips. And I'm bringing this point up because a lot of people have mentioned that they have a lot of weeds in their wood chips. When those green leaves die, they get very slimy and they smell. It almost smells like methane gas when it's decomposing. But what it does, it leaves you don't see it too much in the springtime, like a gel-like substance that's very clear. You don't see it or you don't feel it, but on top of the wood chips, and it will actually prevent weeds from growing. It will kill the weed seeds off. It's a great way to kill weeds off in an area if you wish to plant them in the fall. So even those green weeds at the base, some of them will actually stay green all winter long. Some of them are very winter hardy. I don't know the names off the top of my head, but basically that when those leaves die back, it will kill those weeds off around them, decomposing them also, and it will take a long time. It's not going to keep your garden totally weed free, but in the springtime when a lot of weeds start sprouting up again and grasses and things like that, it will keep it at bay for like at least 2 months, and then you can plant your other main crop and hopefully keep the weeds down. I also want to remove this and show you the reason why they call this also a tillage radish is because it leaves a nice sized hole in the ground, and when it dies, it's just like the concept of you leaving your annual roots, like your pepper plants, your tomato plants, cutting them off and leaving the roots in the ground, because that leaves all channels in the ground, and that's exactly what this will do. So I'm going to pull this out and I'll show you the hole that it leaves behind after it rots away. So let's remove this and see what we got down below there. Hopefully I don't break it off. I can just, there it goes. Now you can see how deep it went down here. I'll widen this open for you. Go the other way. Now you can see that it went in the ground more than say 6 inches, and then when it rots, we have almost looks like a mouse hole that goes down 6 inches and opens up that soil for you. And thus what happens when it decomposes, the organic matter will fall eventually back into the ground, thus making your no-till garden no-till, because it has done all the natural processes that it wants to. And another great thing I want to mention about this, and I'll show you this. I can't see down the hole too much, but there's a couple of wormholes in there, and worms love this type of root too. It gives off that gel-like substance, and they love to eat it. So that's another benefit of
making more worms in your garden too by growing these beautiful Daikon oilseed radishes.
So if you have decomposed wood chips after 2 years, and you can see the material here all around you, and your wood chips look like that, you're able to plant these Daikon radish seeds in there. They're quite large, and I'll show you at the end of the video what they look like. They are at least as big as a BB or larger, and they're not like your typical small radish seed. They're much larger. And when you plant larger seeds into at least decomposed wood chips that are looking like this, you'll get something to grow. So these radishes will do a very nice job to help prevent weeds in the future if you wish to grow them in your pathways. I also want to share this fact with you also too. The whole radish does not have to be growing in the ground. You can see about, let's say, 6 to 8 inches was in the ground and the rest was above ground. It doesn't matter if there's 4 inches of ground and say 8 inches above it, it's all the same. It will survive. As long as that radish has a taproot going in the ground, it doesn't matter how much grows in the ground or above ground. It does the same and will taste the same and is still edible.
And as I promised you, these are the oilseed radishes, and you can see them scaled towards a dime. And then behind them, I have the radishes cut up on the counter here, and this is what they look like on the inside. And they just make this nice round disc that's about the size of a dollar, a silver dollar. And then we just cut them up and add them to the pan, add a little oil, and we're set to go. We'll throw some orange peppers in there too.
I want to thank you very much for watching today's video. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did making it for you. And I will see you shortly. Enjoy your day. Thanks. If you haven't done so, please subscribe.